Hey folks, welcome back for yet another build video, and one of the rare ones where Scorpio isn't the primary weapon. So this build is built around the new brand set Habsburg Guard, specifically the Courier backpack and the Cherished chest piece, both of which have perfect versions of previous talents that lend themselves quite wonderfully to a vile status effects build. So let's start at the top. We've got the Jetstream Flamethrower, which means we've gone with the Firewall specialization. Primary reasons for that are the Enriched Magnesium Formula talent, which gives plus 20% burn duration, and the Fiery Response talent, which applies burn on armor rank to enemies within 5 meters. And then you also get access to the lovely Flamethrower, which is yet another way to apply status effects on this build. So for our primary weapon, we've gone with the Everlasting Gaze, which sports the Perfect Perpetuation talent, in which headshots grant plus 50% status effect duration and damage to the next status effect you apply. So as you can see here, you don't have a ton of weapon cores, so primarily you're going to be using this weapon to buff your status effect damage. And then for our secondary weapon, we've gone with the Scorpio Shotgun. It's a great way to get yourself out of trouble if you get backed into a corner, on top of which the Septic Shock talent has a number of different status effects that it applies, any or all of which pair very well with the backpack talent that we're sporting here. And then for our sidearm, we've gone with the TDI Card Custom, primarily for that +1 skill tier, just a way to vary the build if you need to switch to your sidearm and get yourself an additional skill tier for either of your skills at any point. This is the weapon to do it with. For our mask, we've gone with the Vile Mask, which of course has the Toxic Delivery talent. Status effects now also apply a damage over time debuff, which is total to 50% of your concussion grenade damage. For our backpack, we've gone with the aforementioned named Habsburg Guard the Courier, which includes the Perfect Creeping Death talent. When you apply a status effect, it also applies to all enemies within 10 meters of your target, and that cooldown has been reduced to only 10 seconds. And of course, the application radius has been increased from 8 meters to 10 meters, making this an even more effective skill than it otherwise was. Really though, the reduced cooldown is what we're going for here, so I do recommend this piece in particular, as opposed to just the normal Creeping Death. You knock 5 seconds off that cooldown, allowing you to use it that much more often. And of course that pairs incredibly well with the Cherished chest piece, which sports the Perfect Trauma talent, applying blind to enemies on headshots and bleed to enemies on chest shots. Both of those cooldowns are 20 seconds, so you can apply both blind and bleed to an enemy, on top of which, whichever one you apply first will proc Perfect Creeping Death. So say for instance you hit a target in the head, you're going to apply blind to it and all enemies within 10 meters of your target, and then you can shoot it in the chest, and you'll also apply bleed to that enemy, on top of which you're going to be applying Toxic Delivery during all of these status effect applications. In the mod slot, we've gone with Skill Haste, just because status effects is not a mod that we can apply. You could certainly go a different direction here. If you're going for a more headshot focused build, you could go with headshot damage or anything else that tickles your particular fancy. I just went with Skill Haste so I could get my skills back that extra bit faster. For our gloves, we've gone with Sokolov Concern. That brand bonus is being wasted, but obviously the plus 15% status effect attribute is what we're really going for here. On top of that, we get some weapon damage to boost both of those weapons. For our holster, we've gone with the China Light Industries Corporation here to increase our explosives damage. If you'll remember, Toxic Delivery is tied to the total damage of our concussion grenades. And since explosives damage does indeed increase our concussion grenade damage, we therefore also increase the Toxic Delivery's overall damage. And then on top of that, we have status effects and skill haste in the attribute slots, buffing all of the status effects that we are applying here. And then for our knee pads, we've gone with our third piece of Habsburg Guard to get to that plus 10% status effects bonus. Since we already had 2 pieces of Habsburg Guard between the chest and the backpack, you could either go with Habsburg Guard or Golan gear here. It does the exact same thing, gets you 10% status effects. And then on top of that, we get an armor core. And then we have status effects and headshot damage in those attribute slots. That's obviously the more important piece for this build, just to buff all of the status effect damage that we're doing. And then for our skills, I've gone with the Jammer Pulse and the Firestarter Chem Launcher. There are certainly a bunch of different options you're going to have to play around with to see what your personal preference is. I personally love the Jammer Pulse and Vial combination. For one, the Jammer Pulse is a great answer when you come up against Black Tusk, where ordinary status effect builds do struggle because the dogs in particular are not susceptible to most status effects. However, if you have the Jammer Pulse on, you can take them down that way. And then on top of that, whenever you apply Disrupt with the Jammer Pulse, you're also applying Toxic Delivery from the Vial Mask. I just find it's a really great area of effect skill to use, but obviously you can go a number of different directions here. This is just the one I went with. And then for our second skill, we have the Firestarter Chem Launcher. Applies burn on affected targets. It is a fantastic pairing, especially since we have that firewall specialization. You're getting plus 20% burn duration. And of course, every time we apply burn, we're also applying the Toxic Delivery status effect, poisoning them, burning them, bleeding and blinding them with the Cherished chest piece. All of those status effects stack up to quite a lot of damage, all the chaos, and a great way to take down a group of enemies very quickly. So that's this build. You can certainly run it solo, but I think it definitely shines more in group play, where you don't have enemies necessarily targeting you specifically, and you can focus on applying status effects all over the place to help out your allies. One thing I will note, anywhere you saw armor regen on this build, you could also go with hazard protection. Obviously that's what the Vial Mask comes with for a reason. On any status effect build, applying hazard protection is a great way to protect yourself from self-harm. I know I've certainly killed myself with the Firestarter Chem Launcher on occasion, and hazard protection is a way to decrease that chance. But it does come down to your personal playstyle. I like armor regen just as a way to hide in the corner and gain some armor back passively, but you may certainly feel differently. If you're going the pure status effects route, status effects and hazard protection wherever you can get them is a great way to go, and I found that this build was a great one to play around with in group play. So go out there, try it out, let me know what you think in the comments, like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more like this, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.
Think twice.